Welcome to an audiobook entitled Parish Management and Operations, The Buck Stops Here, narrated by Catholic author Michael Brinda. We hope you enjoy the segment and find it useful in your ministerial work.
Chapter 16, Indicators of PMO Engagement. Are you as busy as reasonable math would lead you to think you should be in your PMO, given the size of your registered parishioner base and geographic area mapped to life in the world as reflected by births, deaths, disease, crime rate, marriages, divorces, etc., happening within your parish geography? Or perhaps you may have now instinctively detected severe underutilization of PMO services in relation to the size of your parishioner base and geographic area. To assist in this analysis, we must answer, what are the upper and lower framework indicators of an engaged or poorly engaged PMO? What yardsticks do we use in PMO? For instance, indicators of low PMO engagement and utilization. Parish staff phones rarely ringing. Low traffic volume and low correlation of registered parishioners to incoming emails transiting the parish email server. Zero or low parish website visits. Low time spent engaging parish web pages. Parish website uninteresting, not updated, and presenting out-of-date information. Zero or low Catholic social media adoption, implementation, and utilization footprint in the parish. Zero to low understanding of social media. Low foot traffic through parish office. Low enrollment for parish events and retreats. Not enough meaningful and substantial work for paid staff. Little to no impact or substantive work for parish volunteers. Too few new volunteers. Too few new registering parishioners for the geographic footprint of the parish. Too few active and robust ministries. Lack of diverse ministry types. Lack of parish ministry proactive leaders and leadership. Physical premises in poor condition. Youth ministry chronically under-enrolled in relation to the size of the community. On the other hand, what are indicators of high PMO engagement and utilization? High level of inbound and outbound phone calls. High correlation of incoming emails to parish email domain and number of registered parishioners. Robust implementation of Catholic social media. High volume of website traffic, high foot traffic through the parish office, high enrollment for parish events and retreats, more than enough truly substantial work for paid staff, more work to do than volunteers to do it, high volume of new registering parishioners, numerous active, diverse, and well-led parish ministries, physical premises in excellent condition. Parish website interesting and always displays current information. And a large, vibrant, and growing youth ministry. Do you see how proactively, systematically, engaging all indicators of low PMO engagement and utilization can be used as an insightful roadmap for the clear identification of what is broken or deficient that must be addressed? Do you see how such indicators can be used as data collection points and drivers to ultimately weave a PMO strategic plan for yourself and perhaps be further shared across multiple cooperating parishes? Certainly you can, as it is obvious to the most casual observer who bothers to investigate, to look under the hood of PMO, as it were. And provided you bother to look, it is fairly easy to observe when nothing is happening, or not enough is happening in relation to the size and scope of your registered parishioner base and geographic area. However, the straightforward identification of what needs to be addressed is the easy part. Anybody can make a list of broken stuff, but not just anybody can remedy what is on the list of broken stuff. Keep listening. Chapter 17, Removing the Suppression. First, a quote from Benjamin Franklin. It is easier to suppress the first desire than to satisfy all that follow it. End quote. Every enterprise has its so-called low-hanging fruit. We have low-hanging fruit in PMO. Fine. We should always pick such fruit. Why? Because it's there and it's easy, so we pick it. But now what? We want the rest of the fruit. We want all the fruit on our tree, especially the fruit that is very high up on the tree. How do we pick that high fruit? We must create want. In other words, sometimes we have to persuade the high fruit to want to meet us where we are in the same manner we are always willing to meet them where they are. However, the first point to make is that the creation of want is not a euphemism for traditional marketing. How so? Traditional marketing takes an external and attempts to push it upon you until it becomes an internal. For example, I market the picture whatever product or service you want here, and if I am effective in my marketing, you will then choose to buy my product or service in order to embrace that image. Hence, the external becomes the internal. But the creation of want does precisely the opposite as traditional marketing. The creation of want, spearheaded by PMO, proposes to take something that is already internal to man, specifically man's innate desire to seek and know God, that for now in a person, in other words the high fruit, has not been desired. Why? Because the desire to know and want God is being willfully suppressed. Thus, traditional marketing pushes something external upon a person, but the creation of want is a vastly different principle. The creation of want is an attempt to reveal that which is already internal within the person, indeed, imbued by God in every soul at birth, by addressing and removing whatever issue is suppressing the want. Understanding this point is paramount to accepting that the true duty of PMO extends beyond simply fixing parking lot potholes, scheduling events, etc. The second point to make is another revelation based upon the first. If the want we are seeking to create already exists within every person who is apathetic or who has quit on his or her faith in the church, technically speaking, we're not creating anything. We're revealing what already exists, and revealing what already exists is so much easier than building desire from scratch. Traditional product marketing is stuck trying to develop desire from scratch, but we are not at this disadvantaged position in PMO. God imbued the desire to want to know Him in every soul. This is a paramount revelation. If we remove what is suppressing the want imbued by natural law, the soul will return to its natural state and resume desiring to seek God in faith. Faith seeks understanding, where it once left off, no matter how long ago that was. The suspension of desire in each person might have occurred a year ago or 50 years ago. It really doesn't matter. The want to seek and know God is indelibly and permanently imbued on every soul. The problem, our challenge to overcome, is that want is being suppressed, and our job as PMO administrators is to remove the suppression of want. Oh, That's interesting. It turns out PMO is ultimately responsible for a lot more than most people think. As human beings, our souls are designed to incline unto God. But as people living in the world, shiny things easily distract us. And attention spans seem to be getting shorter. Just because I have a short attention span doesn't mean you understand. We turn away from our Creator toward that created shiny thing or noisemaker. But unless we can see through the worldly creation to our Creator and assume our proper role as stewards of creation, which is from Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, we will fall into idolatry, forsaking the Creator for the creation, or rather, exalting creation, in other words, that shiny thing, to the level of our Creator. Some thing or event is ultimately what is habitually suppressing our want, and it's made up in part of all those obstacles we will hear when we try to engage people in our awakening call to action. But notice once we remove what is suppressing that want in the soul, we are free to market the spiritual and temporal benefits to which any member of our faith community is entitled. Therefore, while it can be said we are creating want, it is actually more accurate to say, to understand, and to frame our issue as we are removing the suppression of an inherent, imbued, God-given desire to know and seek God that is within every person. The challenge for us in PMO, therefore, is now more refined, more clear, more precise. How do we reveal the want that already exists within a person but is being willfully suppressed through proactive PMO? Chapter 18, on the revelation of want. A quote from Thomas Merton. We have the choice of two identities, the external mask which seems to be real, and the hidden, inner person who seems to us to be nothing, but who can give himself eternally to the truth in whom he subsists. End quote. What Superior PMO is also about, far beyond fixing the potholes in the parking lot, etc., is the implementation of ideas crafted to reveal the expression of the natural desire to know and seek God in those who suppress it. The revelation of want is the cultivation of desire within parishioners strong enough to overcome the suppression of want and to further and deeply engage them with their parish. Is this easy? No. Is this the essence of our job in PMO ministry? Yes. And since people respond to the marketing of material things, how much more might they respond to the spiritual realm when attracted in a manner that reveals the spiritual hunger and desire God imbued within them? When a person is drawn to the spiritual, he or she will act in the same way as the temporal, engaging in such a manner as to fulfill the desire that is no longer suppressed. This is a transparent migration back to God that the soul cooperates with, but does not necessarily have to fully realize is happening until after it is happening. Further note, this movement of the soul back toward God begets more movement, even astounding exponential movement, in accord with the degree of cooperation facilitated by each soul. Now, where to start? To help serve as a framework for your PMO marketing practices is a document from the Pontifical Council for Social Communications entitled Ethics in Advertising. The document distinguishes between advertising and marketing in this way. To quote, advertising is not the same as marketing. Marketing is the complex of commercial functions involved in transferring goods from producers and consumers, or public relations, the systematic effort to create a favorable public impression or image of some person, group, or entity. In many cases, though, It is a technique or instrument employed by one or both of these." End quote. So, the marketer uses advertising to achieve his or her goals. The document also explains the benefits and harms of advertising, continues with some ethical and moral principles, namely, what is advertised must be true and foremost, it must respect human dignity and be socially responsible, and concludes with some practical steps. Overall, note that within our Catholic faith tradition there is already a good deal of important guidance for us in how to apply such methods. But most importantly in our context, note marketing and advertising, per se, are proposed by proper church authority as fundamentally defensible principles that are not anti-ethical or hostile to church teaching. Never mind you may have known that. How many people who in some manner interact or report to you in PMO know that? You will want to remember this source of authoritative and valid endorsement when facing those who do not choose to understand this proactive dimension of PMO and shun all things from the business realm. For the lapsed person or persons, we must help them view their parish community and church as a helpful spiritual and temporal resource in living their daily life as a Catholic Christian, not just a place where they must, by some threat of eternal damnation and punishment, make a mechanical guest appearance at least once a week. Of course, we desire the parish to become the organic center of personal and family life, but as you must know, mere desire is not a strategic plan. Mere desire will not overcome years, perhaps decades, of the suppression of want. We must therefore with some sadness reflect and note, there is a good reason you may observe the parish phone is not ringing often enough. The email volume is too low in relation to the size of the registered parishioner base and geographic area. Social media campaigns do not develop any traction. There is little to no foot and website traffic. Enrollment in parish retreats is undersubscribed to non-existent, and there is overall, on balance, not nearly enough substantive or substantial across-the-board PMO and ministry engagement taking place. And what is this reason? Too many people reject what the parish is offering or not offering by suppressing the desire God imbued in every person, and PMO is not doing their part to help souls overcome this obstacle of suppression. A quote from Albert Einstein, "Insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." End quote. Before we proceed further, let's ask this elephant in the room question. If not PMO, then who will seek these apathetic or disconnected souls? To answer, we must first understand these three critical points. Number one, those who serve the temporal needs of the parish must always ultimately defer to the authority of the ordained who serve the spiritual needs. In other words, what you want to do in PMO outreach and what you are permitted to do by the powers that be may be two different things. However, a quote from Mark chapter 3 verse 25 applies here. "And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand." End quote. Point number two, a house divided against itself, as you just heard, cannot stand. There must exist a positive and symbiotic relationship between those who serve the spiritual and those who serve the temporal needs of active or lapsed parishioners. If such a positive and symbiotic relationship does not exist between the respective personnel, it must first be created in order for a high level of innovation and quality of PMO engagement to exist. In plain English, if parish paid staff and volunteer personnel are either at odds with the ordained in the parish over what to do and how to further engage active or lapsed lost souls, or if PMO personnel and the ordained are either not rowing or rowing in different directions, or if the PMO administrator adopts a too narrow and restrictive view of the role and purpose of PMO. Until this situation is addressed and remedied, you are wasting your time trying to improve PMO in the manner prescribed herein. In other words, first and foremost, everybody in authority must get on and stay on the same vision page, or developing PMO want that is commensurate with your geographic size will never be achieved. Point number 3, all those who serve the temporal needs of parishioners must defer to the final authority of ordained parish leadership, not only because they serve the sacramental needs of parishioners, but because, as a matter of fact, they ultimately report to the ordained at the top of the parish organizational chart. That does not negate the fact that when highly effective ideas are implemented for serving the temporal needs of souls, this fact has the additional benefit of leading souls to a high level of spiritual and sacramental engagement with ordained clergy. There is a symbiotic relationship between the ordained and PMO personnel. As such, there are mutually shared motivations for the ordained leadership and PMO administrator to resolve any differences in creating more robust, effective, and results-oriented evangelical outreach in PMO. To consciously and willfully neglect serving well the spiritual and temporal dimensions of the parishioner person through superior PMO is tantamount to one limb of the body declaring another limb to be less valuable, if not utterly useless. The body will not die, but it is certainly not what it could and should be when it is denying a critical piece of its very self. Hence, the symbiotic relationship cited above is only achieved when PMO administrators and the ordained in the parish work in harmony together, such that the whole parishioner or lost soul, both the temporal and spiritual, is mutually served. This necessity must be recognized and acknowledged. The key point: do not adopt the ridiculously narrow position that PMO exists for doing parish administrative stuff, etc. Expand your PMO horizons. Do not bifurcate serving the needs of any soul along rigid lines of spiritual and temporal parochial interest and turf protection. Work together. This lesson has largely been lost in many parishes today, with invisible walls but nonetheless present, isolating and locking people into their respective artificial fiefdoms. Mutual interparish and intra-parish PMO cooperation, not to mention mutual professional courtesy between those who serve the spiritual and temporal needs of parishioners, is often poor to non-existent. Why? Because this foundational principle of a symbiotic and reciprocal relationship between serving the spiritual and temporal needs of all souls is not acknowledged or recognized by those holding final authority over PMO. And who suffers in this broken scenario? The entire body of Christ suffers. We all suffer, but most directly the lost souls who are not served needlessly remain lost. It is part of your job to identify this broken condition within your parish and become part of the solution, if not the fountainhead solution provider. Notice this entire problem is initially addressed strictly through the recognition that comes from the art of asking the PMO why, rather than clobbering the science aspects of practicing the PMO how, and how. We must first ask why the church is trending toward empty, the answer being the free will suppression of the want imbued by natural law, before we can discuss what to do about it. So, if we observe that the volume, type, or nature of PMO utilization is not what it should be and could be, we must proactively create demand through the revelation of want, which necessarily implies removal of suppression. To do so, we start where? Keep listening.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.